Hey, hi, welcome back to the LICAF live studio. I'm welcoming back, I hope, people who joined us last night for the live launch, which was fantastic. And I hope you've been watching some of the videos that we released last night, this morning, over a cup of tea or whatever. Now we're in a really exciting sort of moment because this is new territory. We're boldly going into places we haven't been before. I can't describe it any more than that because I have no idea what's about to happen. But I'm going to hand over now to Glenn Southern from Southern GFX, who's going to spend the next hour-ish introducing us to some quite remarkable virtual reality.
Yeah, so I'm only going to talk for literally 10 seconds before I dive into VR. So this is, I'm using a headset here. This is an Oculus Rift S, if anyone is interested in the hardware. It's a very, very common headset for VR. And what we're going to do for most of the session, I'm going to be inside VR. So I'm going to put the headset on now and I'm going to put my feed live so you can see me in VR. And then Julie she'll still see me in the room as you can see us now. And then the main part of the screen will be what I can see in virtual reality. So let me share the screen. As soon as we're in, which normally is quicker than this. So here we go. So hopefully now we're about to dive into VR. Is you seeing that, Chris? All good? Okay, so now you should now be seeing a little bit of a representation of what I see. So obviously I'm in the room with Julie here somewhere. I can't see that now. What I can see is my hands in VR and I've got two controllers. And this is pretty much how VR works for creation tools now. So this is mapped to my hands and I've got these two hand controllers in here and I'm left-handed. So all of my tools are now in my hands. So if you're a designer and you're used to designing in the standard way with a computer or even analog with a pen and pencil, you've got this same sort of feel. You've got your hands in front of you. So I've got all sorts of tools here in front of me. I can pull panels that I need. And realistically, all I really need is a palette, which is as I would be in the real world. And then I've got a tool that does things. So I'm going to spray stuff in the air. I'm going to move that around. And I'm going to show you pretty much how we create 3D assets in VR. And then we'll talk a little bit about why we would even bother doing that. So I've brought along some artwork. So I'm going to turn around in VR now. And I'm looking at a wall, what we call a mood board. So this is a lot of artwork that we're going to talk about for today. So because it's everything that we do is story related and there's always a narrative that we're working to. So if we're working on a film or a game or even on an illustration, a single pane illustration, there will always be a narrative and a story. And what VR does for us is it allows us just to continue that narrative because we're making to that story. So it would be great, obviously, to bring your artwork in to the space that you're working. I won't show you this. This is a turntable. Julie talked about doing a thing from Ghost earlier, so I'm gonna move that as far away as I can behind me. So let's take a look at the artwork that I've loaded in before we make anything. So this is a range of different things. So we've got a story that we want to tell about this guy. He's called the Nomad. So he's a little green alien. He's got most of the imagery you'll see of him. He's always got a backpack, and then the backpack is his burden. And that's something that's part of the story that won't get discussed. But as a designer or as an illustrator, I'd be asked to say, right, can we make here's the next part of his story. He's going to a planet. He's got his spaceship. He's visiting a particular planet to get a certain part of the hero's journey ticked off. So I can bring the imagery in, which is quite useful when certainly if you're an art director or a creative director, you can do this with two people. So you could be in here with me. And that happens in quite a few different programs now. So the guy's been to several planets. He went to this planet in one of the tutorials that we were doing, and he met these they're called bone runners. He went to another planet and he met this creature, which is called a spine blender. We made this in VR, but this is one of the inking over the top and then painted. This was painted on an iPad. but it gives you an idea of the kind of what we'd call the visual language that we're working to. So it is very comic related. That big creature up there, the one that I was showing you there, is this creature. So it looks a completely different animal when he's in black and white and he's inked on the top. So there's a lot of people I work with who are making motion comics. So there's a chap, you can see an interview on the Lycaf page with Bay Ray, and he makes an app for a program called Blender, where you can make motion comics. So I suggest after, don't go away yet, because I don't want to lose you this early, but go away after and look at the links to Bay Ray's work. And there's another chap on there called Andre Berg. So there's plenty to look at this weekend after these sessions. And then these are different renders of this chap, the Nomad, and there's a comic panel that came about because of it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take this little guy and we're going to think about something that meets his universe. So it's something that we can put in his universe. So we've done enough creatures, we've sculpted enough of these monsters. So we want to do something, maybe another character or something like that.
A companion. A
companion, yeah. Well, companion's got to be one of the best things, isn't it? So what does he need then? So he needs, you know, as part of the story, it can't be a great big, like a big wildebeest or anything. I suppose we need some kind of I don't know, maybe like a little pet or something like that goes with him. So let's put him over there. So what do you reckon, Julie? We go for a little cat or something?
A cat or a dog or a mix?
Mix.
Half dog, half cat.
So we need an alien of obviously it needs to be, you know, an alien to some degree. So we'll start off with the utter basics. So we've got this tool here is called clay. So you can see my hand in front of me, and I've got something switched on, which is basically a mirror plane. So let me just show you a little bit about what I'm seeing. So that's just spraying clay in the air, and I can decrease the resolution of polygons very quickly with a click. What that means is I can create, so if you were making with plasticine or clay or anything now, you would be doing the same. You would be adding clay on top like that. And what I'm doing is I'm using a controller and I'm just adding the clay, but it's welding it in, it's merging it in. So this technology, it doesn't work in that you add extra polygons or anything like that. It's called voxel technology. And basically what it does is it just merges the stuff together. So that's me putting a blobby chunk of clay in the air, which doesn't really mean much. Symmetry is on, as I said. So if I move something on this side, and you can see me now pulling it with my hands, we can really go to town, and it's really fluid. So if I, as a designer, I want to try things, it's very cheap. And because basically what I can do is I can really try it quite quickly. You see here where it looks like it's damaged, that's because it's trying to do something and it's tearing. So this is like the stage in sketching where you just block something out. So I would never, if we were going to, I haven't even started the actual creature yet. I'm still very much in the let's just mess around, but we might as well just go for it. So if I'm in what we call the very early stages, with a pen and pencil, I'd just be drawing gestures and lines. So we can do that with this. So we could gesture out a creature. So you wouldn't want to see me now, or I wouldn't want to see my team or me doing it like it's starting on a nose when we haven't got a head, let alone a body. So this is where this software is really cool. So we'll keep that resolution low, and we'll make a head, a body, and as many arms and legs as Julie tells me. So again, you keep seeing me making it low. So I'm keeping it really, really fluid and really flexible. So there's a head. I'm always a fan of big ears. So let's give him big. And don't be sitting there thinking, oh my God, it does look like spray clay. Because what we're doing here is we're doing what we call primary forms. So I'm thinking that I'm going to make a creature, but I don't know what it is yet. So I'm really just going, right, it needs some ears. And they could be ripped off. So I could literally just take this, with a double click, I can just remove those ears. So this is where you can really explore. So we want something that's alien, but dog and cat. So let's just go with a head. We'll start with a body. We'll think about him. Let's make him like a bulldog. So let's bring him. So this would be a rib cage. And we'll think about him going down his spine. And then thinking about this would be where his shoulders would be. And a dog's leg obviously is very different than ours. So you have, and bear in mind, in fact, this might be cartoony at the end, but to have a good grounding in real anatomy is where it really works. When you see good comic artists, even stylized, they know their anatomy better than anything. So it comes down to from the shoulder blade, and we've got the upper arm here, the humerus, then down onto the, what would be the for us would be a forearm, and then we'd have the toes and the legs. So you can see already, I'm getting the form down before I think about where I go next, about any of the fun stuff. So come down, his belly would be here. Don't want him too chunky, so you'd have some hips here, which would lead to his thighs, and his thighs would lead to the back of his calves. And then animals like this, anyone that knows a bit about anatomy, you've got the way humans walk, which is called, you've got two different types really. You've got digitigrade and plantigrade. We're getting a bit techie here now. But basically what it means is, on us, if you think about it, that would be our thigh, and this would be our ankle, our calf, and this would be our foot. This is called your calcaneus, if anyone wants to know. Well, that's then the foot on a human, but then if you think about it as a dog, straight away they go up, and that means that they constantly walk on their toes. Now, this might be an alien, but I've already grounded it in real-world mammalian anatomy. Sounds like a David Attenborough kind of.
It does a bit. I'm sure there's a song in there somewhere.
So yeah, well, we can make some songs about it. So now what I'm doing is I'm still on that same body plan, but I'm thinking, right, he wants a bit of anatomy, but we want him fun at the end. But now we've got something to build that on. We're already feeling that like that's a creature, I can live with that. And if we can't, then we don't go any further than that. There's a couple of sayings in different languages about polishing things. And I don't know the YouTube policy about language, so I'm not going to say anything. But I wouldn't work on anything that doesn't do what we call read well now. So by read, what that means is I'm looking to see if in its basic silhouette form, is this reading? Is this what I want to make? That if there's anyone else involved, do they like the way I'm going? This could be a very rough sketch. This could be, if it was in the real world, it would be what we'd call a block out, just a chunk of plasticine that looks like where I'm going. And then I'd show it to people, I'd show it to my clients, I'd show it to my other team members. I'd say, right, what's wrong with this? And then we start getting feedback then. So we'd say, right, the volumes aren't right. And it doesn't mean it's too loud. Volume means, if I look at this ankle here, I could say, right, that if he was standing like that, then this here would be a fatter muscle, and there would be more volume there. And volume, as I say, means bulkiness of a thing. So the volume of a room, or the volume of a muscle, or the volume of, but basically what I'm saying is, it means, is there enough, to say that that's the right side? And then we turn it round and look at it in all different angles. So we're thinking about a stylized world, but if you look at my stylized world, it'd be interesting for anyone who doesn't know VR, because I'm obviously wandering around the room a bit now, and I'm looking around a virtual world. So for example, if I've taught dog anatomy in VR, and I would have the anatomy there behind me. So I might have a picture of a dog or a skeleton or the muscles, or if I was making these creatures, which are partly human, then I'd have, a reference in here of this arm, of this, say I want it to be a vulture's head, a crab's claw, you go, crazy with it really, because it's all in here in this room with us. So back to our little doggy.
Stroke cat.
Stroke catty, yeah. So we'll change him a little bit. We might give him a different kind of tail. But now, before we go any further, let's just use another tool. So I'll just build him up a bit here. Does he need horns or anything?
Whiskers.
Whiskers can come later, yeah. Anything thin and anything wispy, we'll do it again. Is the neck long enough, or is
a bit longer, I'd say.
A bit longer, okay.
Yeah.
So this is where it gets fun now. So try this tool. This is called the Move tool. To make it the right size, just make them a bit lower again. That means. So now, I'm trying to keep it a good view from you. Let's use this tool. And this, anyone that knows me knows that this tool is called the Move tool. And this is one of my favorite tools in all of 3D. And I don't just mean VR. It was written by a guy called David Farrell in the Medium team in San Francisco. And I was actually in San Francisco talking to him about it. And because I've been into these kind of digital tools for years, when he showed me, I was like, hang on. So that might be a bit too geeky for what I'm trying to show today, but can you imagine for someone who's been in 3D since like 1991, I think I started, to be able to just grab a piece of geometry. So a pull brush has been quite normal for 20 years in a lot of things, but there's never been a tool where I can grab it and do this. There's never been a tool where I could turn mirror off for a moment. I'll have to turn it back on again to finish this, but I've never had a tool where I can grab the head with my hand and do this. And I can actually do a little bit, not animating, but I can play with my shapes with that one tool. So it's crazy how one tool can have a bigger impact on you. So if we've got that character in, if my art director or my Julie in this case says, yeah, I'm happy with that as a rough, as a block out, then there's a couple of things you might want to explore.
I like it.
You're liking it? Is everything
yeah, because it looks like a companion. It doesn't look threatening.
Fantastic. So and that's before we've even got deep into it. So normally now I would do what we call, let's start working on the secondary shapes, but I just wanted to show you this tool. So this tool is to be able to paint with. And with this, I can, like in any software really, I can, if I just want to have a go of the color, I'll do it now because normally we do this last, but I'll have a go. So I've got opacity, the hardness of the brush, do I want to spray it or brush it? And then look,
Hey.
that's obviously what we call a flood fill because it's literally gone absolutely crazy with a massive brush. So we'll bring that back a little bit and then we'll go with those settings. We'll knock the opacity down. And now we're still on symmetry. And I can just have a bit of a play now. So too much there, but completely opaque, completely transparent. So look, I can just say, right, let's just get a little bit of shading in there before we do any dots or anything that I'm sure that Julie's going to ask me today.
Like the colour.
Yeah, colour we wouldn't do this at this point normally. Let's change it because of the way the character is with blues and greens. I want it a very different colour than him. So this is something we do a lot, is we might bring the scene that it's going in. We might say, right, would he fit in there? Is that too gaudy? I quite like that contrast because, we're looking at a green against the pink, so he's going to stand out wherever he is. So, are you happy with that?
I think I think a bold companion makes a change, doesn't it?
So if we've got pink, one colour we'd always pick with this would be a yellow. So, at some point, probably later on, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to make him a bit freaky and I might even do, I always like this look, which is flood fill the feet of a creature. And I don't know why, it reminds me, is it an okapi that's got those dark feet and stripy body? So, and that leads me on to something about me as a designer, which is I'm led by nature all the time. And a lot of artists are, I know. So I dive a lot, I go walking a lot, but everything I do, virtual or real, is driven by nature. And the reason the reason we get jobs is because we know how a cricket looks, we know how a giraffe looks, because we spend years looking at it and we study it. And if you're thinking about getting into anything like this, and it is super easy to get into, because presuming you've got the money to get this hardware, and it's not huge and it's getting cheaper. You find a lot of kids have this hardware in your house and you don't even know it. So it's a VR kit that you would use for games. So it really isn't a huge amount of expense, relatively speaking. I know if you've got no money, that's obviously wrong. But so it is easy to get into, and there's free versions as well. And over the course of this weekend, if you follow me at Southern GFX, I'm going to be adding it to the Comic Festival. We'll give as much information about how you get into these kind of tools and use these tools in your workflow. Again, this isn't the comic end yet. We're designing the creature. We're not at the point where we're rendering it out like this thing. But this creature could easily look like that before the end of this session, if we wanted it to. So this is the design point right now. So let's give it a couple of eyes. I'd say more than one eye, to be honest. Julie, is that okay?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, can I ask you a question while
you're
doing this?
Definitely, yeah.
Do you not find you get more emotionally connected creating the characters in this way?
Absolutely, 100%. Because people watching at home are seeing this on a flat screen, which is obviously the exact opposite of the reason we're doing it. But the experience I'm having here now is I'm in the room with all this. And the big thing about this industry and why big companies like Autodesk and Adobe are putting money behind it is because we know when it's I can't touch it, so I can't, there's nothing called haptic feedback, which means realistically I want to be able to touch that now and get feedback. Now there are things being developed for that, but it's not there yet. But I do get much more attached to it because I feel like I'm here with it. I can actually put it on the floor next to me. And there's a thing, well, obviously people who know, this is called VR, and we've got AR, which is augmented. So I can easily export this, give it to someone, and they can see it in the room on their iPhone or their iPad. So there's lots of ways for us to be, to be better designers because of that. Now just let me concentrate for 1 second here. So that thing, that body is on a layer. See that layer there? And I've just made this layer, which is a different layer. And the reason I've done that is I'm going to make some eyes. I'm going to go single, which means I'm not spraying this now. It means I just get one dot like that. Obviously, why would I want to do that? Because I want to put eyes on it. Now, personally, I like spiders, so I really want about 6 on here. But I'll take your art direction, Julie. So.
Well, he does look a bit plagued, so you may as well carry on with that theme.
You want all of that, or should I just do 2 and then add them in if needed?
Yeah, yes, 2. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Eyes are in. I'm going to go increase the resolution. Why am I doing that? Good question there, Julie. So
why are you doing that, Glenn?
No, I'm kidding. So the reason I'm doing that is because one thing with a creature that really helps is to give it the features that are going to drive the emotion. Obviously, we don't normally focus on the back feet to drive emotion, do we? We don't have a look at the butt and go, right, that's going to drive the emotion. We do it front and center through the eyes. We get that window into the creature through the eyes. So rather than just put some spheres there, what we want to do is draw something on there. So we'll give him dark eyes. I think I'm back on the painting tool now. So hardness or opacity, and we'll just basically drop some eyes on there like that.
Oh, nice.
Now, that's a very good start, but it's not ideal yet. So we want to go, I should have really gone. This is how I generally do eyes for very quick jobs. Oops. Go black first of all. Then I go to the color, which with more time, I would put a lot of variation in that. And then I go back to a pupil.
Just
so
character
straight
now.
Away, the characters
it's there.
coming alive.
Yeah.
And you can change this, and you can delete it, and you can add to it, blah blah blah. But it's given us some life straight away, and this is very cartoony. And what we will do is we'll fake something here. So I could change the what's called the specularity. So our eyes are wet. So if you look at the nomad guy there, look at his eyeball. Look at me go right in.
Yeah, shiny.
What brings him alive there is the specular highlight, and that means we've got wet eyes with a reflected white highlight. And this, you look at any cartoon, anyone who's drawing faces close up, they will be taking that into account. Photographers put lights in the right place to give you that highlight. So there's lots of different names for that. So we can just, for this particular exercise, we'll just fake it. And look at that, straight away, we're almost in Pokemon world now.
It's adorable.
It's cute already, just with those eyes and that mouth. I mean, we haven't got there's lots of, people don't know it if they don't know it, but there's lots of rules about making characters. So this clearly isn't a baby because he doesn't have a big forehead. Oh, for a second. I went to the wrong tool, didn't I? So move. So for a baby, I would go with a much bigger forehead, big, it looks younger straight, the bigger the forehead. So this is clearly a little bit older than that. He's quite melancholy, isn't he? Because his nose is, the way he's looking there, I wouldn't say sad, but he's got like if he was going to be sad, we would go straight in with a.
He looks vulnerable though.
He does look a bit vulnerable, doesn't he? So, and we can change that with a tweak of a brush. We could make him a cartoony. We could make him angry. We could pull up. We could literally, because this stuff is so easy to work with, we could literally change him in a matter of seconds. So to make him aggressive, that's all it takes. And that's before we start any detailing on this face. So you have to be making choices right from the start of these designs. Now, we wouldn't, because a character can be all of these things, I wouldn't generally set something like that at this stage. I will leave it a bit aggressive because it looks, so he's a companion, but let's say he's also a bit of a bodyguard. So I will leave a little bit of that, and we might change it later on. So make his ears a bit more aggressive, like so. Now he's missing a lower jaw there and possibly teeth later on. So what I'll do is I'll put him a jaw in and I'll put that on a new layer as well. And what that means is I can move that jaw. Now, based on the color, we probably would want to go something like yellow.
Yellow, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll go with what we've got, and then we'll change it as we need it. So we've got a new layer. It's so it's still responding from when we did single. I have to go back to continuous. Actually, we will pick a yellow now. We'll go straight in with yellow. Incidentally, if I paint over that one that I've done, see how it's covered it over? But watch this. Inside is still white. So that's really interesting for effect. Sometimes you can, you can start with something and then you can pull out the color from inside. So let's just, are we on the right layer there? No, we're not. So obviously it's all about the layering at this early stage. If you get that wrong, then you've got, you basically are going to have to be, you'll be, my brush is really small there. You'll be making choices all the time that will affect what you're doing. So it's best to pick everything early, like I'm doing here. So I definitely want this jaw on a layer. So I could have just said, we'll just live with that. But it didn't work for me. So, we're not doing that. Let me just pull this round a bit more. I'm just thinking of how I want this to go. In fact, I don't know if he needs a jaw, because
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've done that. I think the feature is in his eyes and where it's going. So probably now, actually, I won't. Now see under here where it's quite dark. I want to fill that in, but I can't because if I start brushing stuff in there, I can use another tool instead. So this is called an Inflate Brush. So this, if you watch here now, that's literally just inflating the clay. So that's like blowing it up with a balloon. So these are some of the tools that I wouldn't have in the real world unless I had a pump, obviously. So this is where the digital, if I want to play with things like this, this is where I've got, the move tool, that obviously the initial clay tool, it makes it really flexible. And that's, I'm turning that over, but watch this, this will make this more realistic now. So I've rolled that over and it's welded all okay. We can repaint it whenever we want. We can add more clay whenever we want. So I could add more along here now and see how it's welding it in. So that's given me more definition for this ear, which would clearly have more skin down here, and then smooth it. And then what we can do is negative it away again. Remember that? So that's that one. So we start thinking about how a dog's ear would be, what's going on inside a dog's ear. So maybe go in behind that a little bit. And suddenly it's becoming quite real again because we're now putting real world details. You could have some rips in the ear later on, and there's still lots more we can do with that. But we're at the moment we're getting the core of it down. Now it's gone a bit thin there. See how it's fracturing? So what tool have we got? So inflate. See how it builds that volume up.
Wow.
And that's filling in. So we're not filling in as in, we're not adding clay and, really destroying what we've done. What we're doing is just enhance it. So it might need to be thinner on the end. So we just use that smooth tool, do that, and then move it out like that. So it's looking tighter on the end there. And let's look at him from above. Cute as buttons.
Oh, so sweet. So I like the sort of claymation or whatever they're called, experts, and they moving into this way.
Yeah. If you look at Aardman and look at McKinnon and so on, there's other puppet makers in fact, I don't know anyone who hasn't had a look at this. There are certainly people that we've worked with, because you just don't know where this technology is going to lead to, and I think people are looking at it because big companies are putting so much effort behind it. I think any creatives who haven't looked at it, that you could suddenly find that you're left behind a little bit. Now, I'm not saying it's going to change, and I don't think it should change the way we do a lot of the craft-based stuff, because we work a lot of stop motion. We make things that are then used in stop motion. So we do a lot of face replacements, like you'd see on things like the stuff that Leica does, like the Paranorman and stuff like that. That's quite commonplace now, although it's still very expensive technology. That's all made, or a lot of it is made with a piece of software called Zbrush, which is one of our main, I'd say new tools, but I started training it in '99. But Zbrush is the de facto granddaddy of all of this stuff. And everyone is, those kind of companies, all of them, Jim Henson's puppet company, everyone has had a look at Zbrush, because it's the best tool. Now, Zbrush, obviously, there is no Zbrush in VR yet, but who knows? It's like the Wild West. It's changing at such a rate.
Well, in fact, someone's just asking a sort of critical question. Yeah. How much does the software cost?
Software is virtually free, so it's like $19.99, I think, at the moment. So they're not. It's not the software that's the problem. It's the infrastructure for the hardware. So you're going to need an Oculus Rift, or something called an Oculus Quest, which is just coming out on Tuesday. Oculus Quest 2 is only $299. I say only. I'm not being flippant about that. I know. In these COVID times, some people don't even have 2 pennies to rub. So I fully appreciate that. But as a designer, this isn't a huge on cost for you, and this is not the only software. This is I say Oculus because it used to be owned by Oculus. This is Adobe Medium. So Adobe now own it. They obviously saw a benefit to buying it, so they bought out the company that, believe it or not, used to be owned by Facebook. And Oculus is still, so the people that make this headset, it does actually say Lenovo on it, but it's manufactured by Lenovo, but it's made by Oculus. And they sold, or Facebook sold Oculus Medium to Adobe. So that's now Adobe Medium, which is this one that I'm using. I'm going, naturally I go grumpy, look at that. Nobody was looking, and suddenly
It's diametrically opposed to your own personality.
I just love creatures that have got a real.
But you do. The emotional thing. It's really struck me because when you weren't paying it attention, I was worried that it was feeling bad that you weren't paying attention to it. But
it's so good. Well, we're going to do something now. We're going to chop him up now. So before I do that, because at this stage, when I generally, when I'm making something, I probably will do about half an hour just playing with it. I'm going to save it, and this is fun. Because you'll see me typing in the air in front of me. I just love doing this. So I need a name, please. So this is going to be 5-minute hiatus.
This normally takes like 3 days, doesn't it, of group meetings?
So come on, we need. I think design by committee.
It's got to have a LCAF Live-y type thing in it. We could call him
Steve.
We could call him Steve. Brian.
There we go. There you go. Brian, hang on. 001. Oh, hang on. Oh, I always like to give an extra in case I get 999 versions of him.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
Save. Now, what is interesting, anyone who is watching this who likes new and exciting ways of doing stuff, you might want to use this, and I want to tell you how you can use it. So you can export this and then bring it into any other 3D package. And that brings the color as well, once you get to know what you're doing. And that's really exciting because that's where we get it into 3D for going into a comic or going into an illustration or a concept art piece. So that model that I've just saved, as much as that's just to save, you can do what's called an export, which is here, and you can send it out. So anyone who wants to know any more about that, just follow my channel @SouthernGFX, and anyone who actually wants to use this more, then I'm more than happy to. We do a lot of videos and explainers, and I train it all over the world. So. The next bit then, how are we doing for time, folks? Just because I'm in a VR world here and I haven't got my VR watch on.
You've got 25 minutes left.
Right, and including questions. That is exactly bang on time. So you're not going to like this, some of you, because I'm going to really badly hurt him. So please make sure that the RSPCA don't watch this next bit, because this could be taken out of context. So I'm going to take a knife to him, and I'm really sorry. So I'm going to turn symmetry off, which I think I've just done. No, I haven't. So mirroring is now off. So I'm now going to chop him up in a different way. So why am I going to do that? So look at him now, and he is in what we'd call a neutral pose. If this was a human, it would be a T pose like this. So this is how we would make a creature when we're starting out, before we make it ready for animation. But I might want to show him in a running pose, or I might want to show him in, I might want to change his features a lot. So we've saved him now, so we can do whatever we want. So let's just rip him up a little bit. So we're going to use this tool here, cut, and I'm going to just make this is a little laser. You probably won't be able to see it. Let me just make the whole thing a little bit smaller. You have to bear in mind with this, see this black outline here? Mm-hmm. This is a grid, and I can't go outside that grid. It gives me a world, and because of the scale that it is, my tools are all tiny now. So see my knife tool, it's super tiny and it won't work. So I just have to change a few things to get him the right size.
Well, before you chop him up, someone thinks that he ought to be called Squiffy.
Squiffy, I quite like that. I quite like
so
Squiffy.
I think he is now Squiffy, no longer Brian.
For a moment, I'm just going to move his eyes over here. This is going to look a little bit odd for a few minutes. But what I need to do is be able to rescale him and chop him up. So that's my bad, because I didn't prepare it well enough with it from a scale point of view. So let's see if the tool. So now we're going to slice off. First of all, let's slice that ear off, like I said. So this is a laser pointer, and hopefully it won't lag too much. I always have a worry at this point that I'll crash it, which is why I saved it before I did it. These little things in the air in front of me here, these are meaning that, no, it's not worked because I haven't got the right scale. So let's just make him a bit. There's lots of things. There'll be people watching that I know will be like, oh, you bloody idiot, you should have prepared this. But I might have to lower the resolution in a moment, but let's just see if we can do it without going too far. When you're presenting live and Zoom's doing a lot of it, I don't know how bad the lag gets on here. So we'll see. If this doesn't work, then we might have to go for something else.
Okay.
But it seems to be going too long. So what that's done is that has worked, and that's now given me a chopped off leg. And as I said, you could get quite upset about this. What I'm going to do, actually, let me take him. Let me just see if, I don't want to put too much load on it, but I'll just see if, there we go. If I lower the res, it might look a bit blocky and choppy, but at least technically I can do it now. Sorry. So that's the first one. Hopefully now everything moves a bit faster. So I'm just going to put this here, and then I'm going to go make sure we're on cut. I'm going to chop off this bit. Yeah, there we go. So it might be low res, but at least it's working now. So just for a moment, that might be what I do. Now, instantly, you're seeing that I'm bringing emotion in with the body now. Forget that there's rough edges. Give me those eyes back now. I've got them all scaled right correctly now. And we can separate those eyes, and we can make them, we can make them do different things. But instantly, just with that foot, we're now in a different world, because when you do anything symmetrically, nothing in the real world is symmetrical. And what that means is that our eye doesn't like symmetry. So anything organic, we might be a symmetrical body plan, but if you've ever looked at yourself in a mirror, a half of a mirror, and look how unsymmetrical or asymmetrical you are, that really translates. So when you just draw things in a pose like that, it doesn't work well. So let's carry on doing that. Now we've got the tool working better. So it should, yeah, there you go. So that leg, I just want it back a little bit like that. And now we're getting into like how a dog moves. I'm not joining those parts, but what I'm doing is I'm working out if my design, has it worked? Have I been able to put enough emotion in this little guy? And then what also helps is if I do another new layer, what really, really helps is if you ground him in the real world. So if we go over here, and this is one of the reasons I love this software. Let's just get it set up correctly. Here is a set of what we call stamps. So these are, I've only used one tool. So I've basically just been spraying with a ball in the air, but in here are thousands of shapes. So you could, for example, they give you a set of rocks. So if I just want to put him on a rock, remember the thing I changed at the start to single, I could basically just say, right, let's just have him standing on a rock.
Huh.
Now that helps me straight away because, well, one, I could move the rock, but two, more importantly, I can now ground him on this rock. And he might be grabbing the front of this rock, and that means his body might need to be further forward, which would mean this will be forward. Now, in other software, we could do what we call a rig, and we could pose him, but it's expensive, time consuming, and I can answer a lot of questions at the concept stage here now. So I can mess around with all of this. He's walking down some steps going into a dungeon or something, and it doesn't matter that he's chopped off here. Again, remember these tools. So I can, I can start, as long as I remember how I've designed him and how he should look, I can stitch him all back together nicely. And if you're a comic artist thinking about this, you don't want to learn the complexities of how to use Maya and Cinema 4D and Lightwave and all of these programs. What you want to do is make your creation. And that's why I love this software, because it just allows people to just get in and squidge out the shapes they want. A lot of comic artists draw over 3D now. It's quite common with software like Blender, which is, again, if anybody's thinking of getting into 3D and doesn't want to pay for it, get Blender, because it's free and it's fully featured. It's just an amazing program now. It's made in Europe, and they're funded in such a way that they don't sell it at all. It's just go and get it. You can sculpt in it. Can't do this in it, but it gives you a lot of this. So see that leg there doesn't work, does it? See the back leg? So instantly I've worked out a problem. So that leg should be skewed out here for stability. And again, that's what this is answering for me, which is this creature going to work in this environment? So if this leg's forward, this leg's back, this leg's forward, so this one needs to be back. So that means his body's not going to work because he needs to twist his whole body. So we'll make him a tiny, tiny little thing. And we'll just bring him down like this. So, and then back up. So that means that leg would have to change. And then this one now has to be grounded. This is why this move tool is so special. Now, if I was doing this for a TV show where the director wanted a physical sculpt, I could spend another, I could spend days on this kind of stuff if I was told to, or more importantly, paid to. Then what I could do is I could seal this all up, do the final surface detailing, and then basically 3D print it. So you'll find everyone who runs companies like me, we all have these big 3D printers, so that you can literally show, because some art directors, some designers, some people can't see things on a screen. They just can't understand, and it's like with comics, sometimes people need to see a printed page to appreciate it. Right, I'm going to do the big one now. Unfortunately, his head's going to have to come off.
No.
Yeah, sorry. Laser his head off. Look at that. It didn't bother me.
Must be quite gratifying sometimes.
Didn't bother me one bit. So now we can really get some character. So once you start thinking about heads and moving the heads around, now the character comes, or creature comes alive. Now you were right. We didn't have enough of a neck. So this will give us an opportunity to pull us a bit more of a neck.
Yeah.
And we'll fix all that later, fix it in post, as they say. And then the eyes, put them back. Again, we should split those eyes really, because emotion, as I say, comes from the eye. So how would we do that? So there's quite a few ways to do it. So I can duplicate them like this. And then I just need to go back to that clay brush, not have a rock in my hand, have just a sphere. Lose that one, lose that one. Now I've got separate eyes. Why is that useful? Because obviously this is what we want to be seeing, which is, now that's a bit of trepidation now, isn't it? Yeah. It's gone from fear to, angry to
Squiffy.
To Squiffy. Yeah, actually, yeah. Now he's crazy Squiffy. So that's getting like a pug, isn't it? So we've got those eyes that go off. Maybe one of his eyes should be like this. Now we're really into crazy times now. Yeah. And one thing that I'm going to do that back, because he didn't deserve that, did he?
Not really.
So, another couple of powerful things for comic artists. So I'm going to change something else now. So let's have a look at the. Let's get back to the normal tools. This is called the scene graph. This is where all of those layers, all those layers I've chopped up now, we could just stick them all back together if I wanted. If I go to world and then I go to settings. I have all the settings for my world. So for example, I never work in this kind of like bluey world, to be honest. I work in this world, which is like dark and, you know, dingy, and or you could work in, you know, neutral, which does help. And you could work in this one, which is probably for him actually cute. But what I want to do is this. I want to turn the sun off or down. I want to turn, this is called IBL, and this is called image-based lighting. So what this means is this scene has a photograph all around it that you can't see. And it's actually a 3D image of the world that they set. And that image is what can light the character. So if we were to have a piece of glass in here, it would be showing whatever that photograph all around. It's called, people have heard of a HDRI probably, or a high dynamic range image on your iPhone. That's kind of like where that goes when it goes a bit further. So we'll turn that right down. So the lighting's completely different now. And now we'll start playing with lights. And this is where you can bring a whole new range of emotion. I have to find my lights because they're up here in the world. So look at this now. So this is now where we really start designing. So a couple of things to do first. Actually, what I should have done, there's what's called a bloom there. In fact, do we need it on, or might change it? Take the bloom off, take the ground plane off, take this, I'll leave the skybox on. So let's play with these lights now. So let's go from right under his chin. We've got the light there, and we can change the color, and we'll go to green. So he's, let's say, for example, let's go back to our story and say they're in a cave, and now they've just found something, and now they're exploring like a pit or something. And look at the difference that lighting makes. Yeah. And also what we can do is we can just pick those lights up, and we can attach them to a model. It's this one and this one. We can stick them anywhere we want, and now they move with the model. So what that means is I can get a standard, you know, a predictable set of light, and see the shadow underneath him now. See how it moves, and now you can see how I'm moving the shadow, and now it's shadow over his eyes. And now what happens is he will look very different, because if I do, for example, I can move his eyebrows really down now. So he's got quizzical now. But look how that brow makes a big difference. So if you design without any lights or just in a flat world, you don't know what that brow can do. And a lot of our features are driven, and we see everything because of light. So if you don't factor in light, you're going to struggle, because you may have made something that looks absolutely terrible. And without light, the thing that really, really pains you, if I can't even do it now without doing it, but basically, if I was to turn this character completely black, you would see that the silhouette looks good, or it should look good if I've done my job. Or even just unfocus your eyes, that sometimes helps. But that basically is meaning that I did the early work right. And if it doesn't, then I should never have gone forward with it. I shouldn't have started going into any kind of detailing. Incidentally, we haven't detailed this yet. This is what we would still call the secondary block out. It's just, does our creature work? One thing we can do, again, we can just quickly, because that's, I think we're getting to the end of our time. So
probably close. 10 minutes.
10 minutes, cool, that's about good. So look at this now. Now he's listening at a door. and this is where it gets really, really fun. So he could be very sad.
Oh.
Let's rip this other ear off. Just move him out of the way for a minute. Are we taking Q&A at the end, or do you want to do it while I'm working? Or
have we got any more questions coming in?
Or do you want to ask anyone if they want to ask any questions?
Julie's been asking as we've been going, actually.
Oh, right, okay,
questions, yeah.
Cool. So I'll just carry on then. So let's just do this.
But do ask. 10 minutes and counting.
People always ask after.
They do, don't they? Yeah. But they can go to your channel.
Yeah. I'm around all weekend anyway. So if, you know, at Southern GFX on any social media, I'll answer any question. If it, you know, a lot of people are, they see this and then they think, all right, I just need to absorb it a little bit, because, you know, 3D is quite, it's one of those things that is quite intimidating. If you're coming from an illustration background and you've never you've always wanted to do go a little bit further with your creations and do 3D. The minute you start on your own, it's so intimidating.
It is mesmerizing watching, because you make it sound like it's the easiest, most, fluent, you're fluent in it. But, if you haven't tried it before, or you're at the beginning stages.
Yeah, but I also teach it, and I also know what's hard. So to teach this and for you to learn it, this is one of the easiest ways, because if there's two types of people that I train. So there's the artists that just need to know where the next button is, and they're already high functioning, amazing artists, and they just need to have a different way of getting their creation down. And the other people who are technically minded, so they wouldn't bat an eye at this, but their end result is quite a lot further down the creative level, if you know what I mean. So they wouldn't. So for example, most people who've been in illustration, who have survived as an illustrator, will know how to do a lot of. They will know a lot of the language I'm using about shape language and lighting. They'll know a lot of that because that's what they have to do to deliver into that industry. But then if you're a graphic designer, you might have always wanted to do characters, but you've been doing your graphic design, and you've added other people's work into your designs, but you've never got around to doing it yourself. This is one of the most simple ways to get into that.
Great, we've got a few questions coming in actually. I mean, one was, is there a different software for animating the character?
Yeah, so if you want to do it in VR, it's one called Tvori, Tvori, or AnimVR. So you can take this model, and another one is Masterpiece VR, where you can rig it. So there's three that you could try that would take it to the animation. If you're not into the geometry, so this is chord geometry. So what that means is it's groups of polygons that we can do stuff with. If you're much more of a 2D illustrator, but you want to go into 3D and stick with your core tenet of 2D, there's one called Oculus Quill. And look up a guy called Goro Fujita. That's Goro and then Fujita. And Goro is he's worked for DreamWorks, and he's basically a concept artist, but he's really developed how to use Oculus Quill. And that means you can literally sketch and draw like you would normally, and then animate those lines inside of Quill. So that's another good one. What we do with it generally is we send it to programs like Cinema 4D and Maya and Blender to animate it. So there's many different paths. But
that's really useful. And the couple actually, Phil.
Hello, Phil.
Hello, Phil. Wants to know, you find it more intuitive than a keyboard and mouse 3D?
Yeah, I mean, I'm old, so I've been doing this since it was invented, but I don't really use a mouse and keyboard anymore. So I've been using what's called a Wacom graphic tablet. Oh, I've just earned awards. Look, you've earned new reward items.
Oh yeah.
I have a home in here, and they give me awards every time I do something cool. So that's why I never come out. Yeah. So I've spent probably since about 99, maybe something like that, maybe a little bit later. I've used a pen on a Wacom tablet of some type. So. And I'll never go away from that, because this isn't my entire world now. I'm a functioning artist. I do have to deliver drawings, models, the full range. I can do most of it with a pen. This is more intuitive than that from a sculptural point of view. Zbrush with the pen is the way I spend most of my life. This is, I mean, you've seen what I've done in half an hour. So imagine if you spend a full day on this, even if, I can teach people this in 5 courses, and by the end of the day, they're making this, if they know their anatomy. Obviously, I'm not being flippant about how hard that is. Learning about anatomy and light and shape, all of the basics is what I always tell my students to get onto. Don't worry about all this. And anyone who jumps into here who has all that basics finds this super easy. So if you're an illustrator, you know how to draw a dog, I can teach you how to make it in 3D in minutes. If you don't know how to, draw a dog, go and do your anatomy work. You've got to put the effort in there, not here.
John's asking, how long does it normally take to create a VR character? I know it probably depends on budget to a degree, but...
It depends what the end use is. To make the characters about half an hour, whatever it is. full drag. I could do you a full dragon in 10 minutes now without buying a knife, but that's just the design. That's just the block. If you mean where it goes from there, it could be anything from like half a day to a week. You know, generally we get all of our answers done within the hour. Okay. So we wouldn't show this yet. You know, this is still a block out. So I wouldn't show this to anyone. What I would do is before I did all of this posing and all of this stuff, I would have then I would have gone in here, I would have gone up the resolution, and then I would put in all of the fine detail. You know, you were saying about things like, yeah, let me just show you an example. Okay. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to use clay. I'm going to go back to this little dotty thing here. I'm going to make a new color, so I'll take purple and go dark, and I'm going to go, let's make, I've got that, I always do that, the continuous one. So I'll make it a lower res again. Just want super low res. I'm going to make a spine, okay? So I made it too low res now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make what's called a stamp. So let's see what I'm doing. Give me a couple of seconds just to line it all up. Okay, so there you go. There's a spine. Let's call it a spine. I'm going to take that spine. I'm going to make a stamp. And I'm going to delete that spine because I now don't need it. Look what's on my hand now. Okay, and I can actually use that as negative as a way to get rid of stuff. Now, what we just I can move. I can with a button. I can move my hand around, so I can now wave that around. And that could be your whisker, Julie, if we'd have done it.
Yeah, I thought you'd forgotten, but
yeah, we'll do that at the end. Now back to single. Now watch this. So I think I'm out of the range there.
Oh wow, brilliant.
Yeah, or you could go like this, continuous. Now that in 3D would take me, or even 2D would take me quite a few minutes to do it. In this, I can just experiment really quickly. So suddenly, again, I've just changed this character fundamentally. Now I talk about, you know, I'm not I run a company, so I'm not flipping about money, but you know, that's cheaper because I could ask one of my designers to go, right, do us a favor, just try a fin, just try you know, just try it a little bit, and you know, give it wings. Now, you know, that could either be a yes or no from the client, but you know, suddenly I've answered those questions. So let's just do another layer. I just want to get
those. We've got 1 minute left, unfortunately.
Okay.
I wish we had longer. I mean, someone has just been asking about 3D printing, but you can do that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this goes straight to a 3D printer once it's finished. You might want to clean it up a little bit, but you know, essentially it's all 3D print. You know, it does need some work, but it's pretty much ready for print. We do it all the time. We've just bought a huge, big, it looks like the size of a fridge now because it's become such a big thing for us. Nearly there. I'm not going to go until I've done this.
30 seconds and counting. And well, just to finish up, I mean, someone's just commented that it's mind-blowing. I can only agree. I'm sure anybody out there is completely and utterly overwhelmed by what you can do, and you know, just beginning to understand the possibilities. It's quite incredible.
It's the good points that I'll leave you with are it's not, if you know your stuff, it's not hard. And what by that I mean, you know, learn your basics: lighting, shade, perspective, form, volume. All of that you can learn on a pen and pencil. You don't need any equipment. That is the core skill in any of this stuff that we do. Brilliant. To learn this, it's not that hard once you know how to, you know, once you know the next, you know, once you've got past that. If you've already got these skills, this isn't a hard thing to get hold of.
So I think we're going to have to say goodbye to Squiffy. And of less importance, obviously, goodbye to Glenn. But thank you very much, Glenn. That was amazing.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to working with you more in the future. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Absolutely. Have a great day. Enjoy the weekend.